everyone, happy holidays and welcome to the Stitch Sessions. If you are new here, my name is Karen and I love all things to do with crafting with crochet. And if you're not new here, welcome back. It's so good to hang out with you guys again. I enjoy hanging out with you guys every week. So today is the final installment in our Shawl We Crochet series for 2022. Many of you know every year I do a crochet series, kind of like a crochet along, except it's a different project every month. So this year we were talking all about crochet shawls and shawl shapes. So for the month of December, and keeping in theme with the holidays, we are doing the Angel Wings shawl. And the shape is actually known as the Faroese shape. Now, the only thing with this project this month is it didn't quite turn out the way I was hoping it would. And although I'm still pretty happy with it, it's lovely, it's cute, it's definitely functional. The Faroese shape takes on definitely like a winged shape shawl. That's why I'm calling it the Angel Wings shawl. And you will kind of notice as we go through the project in the tutorial, a couple of the challenges, well, actually only one main challenge that I came up once I worked the shawl about halfway down. And so the idea behind a Faroese shape is that it generally has a spine. So you can see the spine, it's indicated there. And then it's got two kind of wings that span out. So basically they're like creating a crescent shape or a semicircle on each side. Now, the boo-boo that I made is that I didn't do enough rows of increasing our winged side before stopping. So the idea is that you create the semicircle shape for many rows and it should keep actually curving up because the Faroese is actually designed to sit beautifully over the neck and so that it doesn't fall off your shoulders. So although I did try to kind of maintain the shape by creating a border at the end, which gave it this really cute collar that I actually ended up being quite happy with. It's not quite the full-on Faroese design. And the interesting thing about Faroese shaped shawls is very rarely do you see them done in crochet. You see them done in knitting patterns all over the place. So I decided my goal was going to be to really introduce it to more crochet designs. So this is the first that we've kind of worked on in our crochet series this year. But coming in the new year, I'm going to create at least one other, if not a couple more, of these Faroese shawls. And I'm going to show you the full span of the wings, so to speak. But anyway, that's a long explanation of what my intention was. And this is why I feel it's important to still show you guys, like sometimes your best intentions or best laid plans don't always work out, but it's what you make of it and how you either fix it or take the boo-boo, so to speak, and create something else. So there you have it. It's really straightforward. I purposely kept the stitches simple. We're just using double crochet stitches here. Okay, and I just add, for a little bit of interest, just to delineate the spine, I use the X stitch. So hopefully you can see that there. This is some self-striping yarn. So I just use the X stitch. Otherwise, it was just double crochets. So if you're still a newer crocheter, if you know double crochets, you should be able to kind of follow along. Feel free, of course, to pause the video at any point in time and go over it again. So all we'll have to kind of keep track of is your increases to initially create that rounded shape and then creating the border at the end. And so I added this border. Actually, I wasn't going to do a border, but because I didn't achieve the amount of curvature that I wanted, I then added this border at the end just to accentuate the shape. So really the Faroese shawl is meant to dip up like that and go around. So there's a little explanation on my goal for this shawl. Turned out a little differently than I anticipated, but I think you'll still have fun with it. This yarn was really fun to work with. It's the Scarfy yarn, and I used 2 full skeins of it. I could have used a third to make it a bit longer, but I was pretty happy with the 2 skeins right here. And it all depends on how you're going to use your shawl. Like for me, I would probably use this more kind of at home, or maybe just quickly letting the dog out real quick. So that's why I just made it about waist length. So in any case, let's first talk about the materials that you're going to need to create this shawl, and then we're going to get stitching up our Angel Wings shawl. Okay, so let's talk about the yarn I'm using for this project. I'm using the Scarfy yarn, and this is by Lion Brand. And this colorway just told me right away, this is exactly the yarn I'm going to be using for our Faroese shawl. And it comes in 150 gram skeins, which gives you 312 yards or 285 meters each. This is 78% acrylic and 22% wool. So if you're worried about washability, just be careful with things that have wool, because they are more wont to felt and definitely shrink. Now this does say machine wash, but it says machine wash cool and lay flat to dry. So if you're not a fan of having to worry too much about the care, I would just try and find a fully acrylic yarn, okay? I'm going to be using 2 of these skeins. It is a bulky yarn, so it's considered, yep, bulky number 5. So you'll definitely get a lot of quick buildup with a bulkier yarn. And for the hook size, I'm going to be using a 6.5 millimeter hook, which is the recommended hook size, which is also known as a size K or a 10.5. You could actually use a size 8 if you really want the stitches to sit super loose and lacy. So I sometimes would have gone up to a size 8, but this time around, I think I am going to stick with the recommendation because I do want it to sit a little bit cozier, considering it is a shawl for December after all. So that's the hook. And as always, just make sure that you have a yarn needle on hand to sew in your ends and a pair of scissors to snip off your yarn. So let's get started. Okay, so I just wanted to show you guys this little swatch that I worked up just to kind of solidify the shaping that we're creating. So you can see here that it starts in the center and then it kind of swells up and then evens out over, which creates that wing-like effect. So we are starting from the top, working down, and we're going to start with our little center spine section here. Okay, and then from there, it continues to build down and outward. So just thought giving you guys that visual might help you to start off. Even though I know you saw the full thing in the intro, sometimes it's still just nice to see a little visual there. So that is how we are going to begin. So we're going to begin by placing a slip knot onto your hook. And we are going to chain up a total of 15 chains. So we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, once you have your 15 chains, you are going to find the 4th chain from the hook. So we never count the loop that's on the hook. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, and 4. And into that chain, we are going to place 2 double crochets. So we've got 1 and we've got 2. So essentially, it looks like you've got a little bit of a shell stitch here. So this chain 3 here will count as a double crochet stitch. What's going to happen next is we are going to chain 1. And now we're going to move into the next stitch right there. So into the next stitch, you are going to place 1 double crochet. And so essentially this shell stitch, which you will see in a little bit, is an increase here that is going to create the need for that little scoop around the neck to dip down. But you'll see that in subsequent rows. What we're going to do next is into each of the next 9 stitches, you will place 1 double crochet. Okay, so you will have a total of 10 double crochets sitting in each of their own stitches. So you can see that. So we've got our shell stitch here, a chain 1, which is going to create a little bit of a bend, and then we're going to do 10 double crochets. Okay, once you've got 10 double crochets, your work will look something like this. And I know red yarn doesn't always show up the best on camera. For some reason, cameras don't like red, but this is a self-striping yarn, I would call it. It kind of goes into, it's like an ombre effect. So this eventually will turn into a lighter color. So in the meantime, hopefully you guys can see that. So I've got my 10 double crochets and now I have 1 stitch left, okay? So I'm going to chain 1. And now into the last stitch, I'm going to place a shell stitch. So that's going to be 3 double crochets. Okay, just like that. So row 1, I should say, I was going to say round. Row 1 is complete. So when I set down my work there, you can see that it has a little bit of a bow out, okay? So now we're going to go on to row number 2, okay? For row number 2, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to turn our work. And we are going to place another shell stitch increase. So normally when we do an increase, we place 2 stitches into 1. I'm calling this a shell stitch increase because it is 3 stitches into 1. And you see this very commonly when we work things like crescent shape shawls, which some of you may remember our Freedom shawl was a crescent shape shawl. So we did use this similar technique. So into this very first stitch here, right there, we're going to place 2 more double crochets because remember the chain 3 does count as a double crochet. So we have 1 and we have 2. Okay, so you can see it's really bowing out to the side there. Now into the next stitch, we're going to place 1 double crochet. And then we've got 1 more stitch before that chain 1 space there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to place 2 double crochets. So we have 1 and 2. And now we're going to create a little bit of an X'd stitch. So we are going to now skip over the chain 1 space and we're going to work into this stitch here. We're going to yarn over and place a double crochet. Then we're going to chain 1. And then we're going to come back and work another double crochet into that stitch there. That's the stitch before the chain 1 space. So we're going to yarn over. Just to make it easier, I'm just going to come in from behind and come through there. I like to turn it around a little bit just so I can hold on to it. And then I resolve like a double crochet. So let's take that out here to show you what's happening. So we have a shell stitch increase here. We have a single stitch, and then we're actually doing a shell stitch increase into that stitch too. But we use the last stitch to create an X. And so that is what we're going to use to kind of flank our spine of double crochets. So you can see there it looks like an X. So where we had that chain 1 space, we now created an X, and we will always create an X there. So I just pick up my sample here. Hopefully you can tell that there. See, those are my X's. It's just a little detail. It almost looks like a little cable there. So it just kind of helps delineate the center of our work. So you can see initially, I just did chain 1 spaces just to kind of make it more obvious that our center spine was sitting there. And you can certainly do that. If you are not a fan of doing the X because maybe you find it a little too challenging for you, if you're still a little bit new, then just keep your chain 1 spaces as such. But if you want to add a little bit more interest, you're going to have the X stitches down the center. Okay? So that's a personal preference. I am going to be doing the X's, and of course, I like to just give you guys some different options. So in case you're not a fan, you can still create your Faroese shawl the way you like it. Okay, so that first stitch here has already been worked into because of the X stitch. So now we're going to continue working across, and this is our spine always. So we're going to place 1 double crochet into each of the next 8 stitches. Okay, and I'll explain to you why in a moment that we're not doing 10. Okay, so I have done 8 stitches. Now, remember, one of our stitches was used right there to create the X stitch. So that's technically the first, then we had another 8, so we have 9 stitches. We've got 1 stitch left to give us our 10, but this is where we're going to create the next X stitch. So we are going to yarn over. We're going to skip this stitch and skip the chain 1 and into the next stitch. What we are going to do is we are going to place 1 double crochet stitch. So you're going to insert your hook, create 1 double crochet, chain 1, and now we're going to come back and we're going to work into this stitch here. Okay, so yarn over, and I just like to kind of go in from behind and then finish the double crochet. Just like that. Okay, so you can see the X effect. So our 10th stitch did get worked, and it was part of that X stitch there. So now what we need to do is we're going to go into this first stitch here from our increase. Remember, we used 1 stitch to create the X. We need to place 2 more stitches here. So we have 1 and 2. As at the end of the day, we're always trying to make sure that both sides are mirroring each other. So see, there's an X and there's an X. Okay, and to the next stitch, we're going to place 1 double crochet. And then the last stitch is actually the top of those 3 chains. So into the top of that chain, which is right there, we're going to place our shell stitch increase. So we're going to yarn over, insert your hook, and place 3 double crochets. And 1 more. Okay. So now you can see it's really bowing out to the side. So right now it looks kind of like a trapezoid, but I promise you our wings are being formed. So that is row 2. Let's move on to row number 3. Okay, so for row number 3, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to turn our work. And we are going to place 2 double crochets into that very first stitch. Okay, so we're creating again another shell stitch increase of 3. Okay, so there's 3 double crochets. So again, you can see it's really bowing out to the side. Into the next stitch, we are going to place 1 double crochet. And into the following stitch, we are going to place 2 double crochets. So we are working this using similar principles to how to crochet a circle or a circular shape. So we are spreading out the increases through here. The difference is we are starting with an increase of 3 stitches at the beginning. So we've got 1, we've got 2, into the next stitch, we've got 1 double crochet, and then we've got 2 into the next stitch, 1 and 2. Okay, so you can see it's really helping to maintain that rounded shape. So we followed that pattern of 2, 1, 2, 1. And at the beginning, we did an increase of 3. And at the end of the wing, we want to do an increase of 3. Okay, so what we're going to do, because this is our X stitch here, we are only going to place 2 of the stitches in here. So we have 1 and we have 2. And before we do the third one, we're going to come over here to begin our X stitch. So we will yarn over, we're gonna skip the chain 1 and go into this side of the X stitch and do our double crochet. Then we chain 1, and now we're gonna come back into that stitch and finish our increase, that third double crochet. Just like that. So let me check that out. Okay, so our X stitch is still remaining. So you see it's kind of following the X stitch from down below, if you can see that. And we still have an increase here of 3 stitches. So we've got 2, and the third one is actually crossing over. So you can see the rounded shape, and that's really what starts to help our wing portion take shape. Okay, so remember, working this from the top down. So essentially your shawl will sit this way, and we're forming our wings to go up, and then we're gonna work the shawl the rest of the way down. Again, I know at the beginning stages, it's kind of hard to visualize, but it will come together slowly but surely, I promise you. Okay, so now we are in our spine section. And so we are going to do our typical 1 double crochet into each of the next 8 stitches. So we have 1, okay, so I've done my next 8 stitches, and we've come to the next X. So now the X's are going to identify themselves for you. If you have a little bit of a trickier time, you can always just place a stitch marker in there to help you out at the beginning. Okay, so we are going to skip this stitch. We're skipping the chain 1, and we're going into the other side of that X there. So you're going to yarn over, insert, chain 1, and you're going to come back to this very first stitch here. So notice we didn't do an increase yet because we are working on the opposite side of our spine. So when we came on this side, we worked a partial increase, did the X, and came back. But because we've come from this side of the spine, we're working the X stitch first, and then we're going to do the increase. So we're going to go back into, so see how that stitch has worked? We need to place 2 more double crochets in there because that is the increase on the other side of our wing. Okay, so there you have it. So the X stitch, and one of those stitches is for the increase. So now we're going to work our way back out to the other end of the wing. So we're going to place 1 double crochet into the next stitch. And then we're going to place an increase in the next stitch. So we have 2 double crochets. So now we're following the regular principles of a rounded project. Into the next stitch, we place 1 stitch. Into the next stitch, we place 2. Okay. Into the next stitch, we have 1. And this takes us to the end of our next wing. And so we've got our chain 3, and into the top of that chain 3, we're going to place our shell stitch increase. 1, 2, and 3. And there we have row number 3 complete, okay? Now moving on to row number 4. Okay, so for round 4, we start again by chaining 3. We turn our work and place 2 more double crochets into that first stitch. So we always want to start off with an increase to get our wings really nice and flared out there, okay? Now into each of the next 2 stitches, we will place 1 double crochet. So we are increasing the number of stitches between each increase. And into the next stitch, we're going to place an increase, which is 2. Okay, and then we are going to do 1 into the next and 1 into the next. And that is the pattern we're going to use to shape our first wing here. So the next stitch will be an increase. Then we have a double crochet, increase, double crochet, and then we are at our X stitch. So from there, we will place the second increase, but we will do the X stitch. So just finish this off here. I'll meet up with you again at the X. X marks the spot. Okay, so we finished the first side of the wing here, and I forgot to mention it earlier, but the number of stitches you should have in round 4 for your first wing is 13. Again, if you are 1 short or 1 more, do not worry. It all works out in the end. So we are ready to do our X stitch now. So we are going to go in and place those first 2 double crochets, because remember, we are doing an increase here. So we are going to place 1, and then we're going to place 2. And before we place the third, that's when we're going to create the X there, okay? So you're going to yarn over. And so you see the chain 1 is there, and then the X from the previous row is there. So that's the stitch we're going into. I'm going to double crochet, chain 1, and now we're going to come back to where we did that increase and finish placing the third stitch there. So remember, we're doing a shell stitch increase at the beginning and end of each wing. So there is the next X stitch. And it's just to create a little bit of texture there and to delineate between the wing and our spine, okay? So now we continue on. We're on the spine section of our shawl, and it's 1 double crochet into each of the next 8 stitches. And we've completed 8 stitches, and we are at our next X section. So we are going to start right away with the X. So we're going to skip this next stitch, skip the chain 1, and into the following stitch, we'll place 1 double crochet. Now that will be where a shell stitch increase will be placed, but we're going to create the X first and then finish off the increase. So we chain 1, then we come back to this side of the X and we place a double crochet in order to finish it. So this is basically what's always happening at the beginning and end of our spine. There's always an X stitch that's going to be created. So when we begin the spine with an X stitch, we have to start with the increase portion first and do the X. When we're finishing the spine, we do the X first and then finish the increase. So you can see we've already worked 1 stitch into there, so we're going to place 2 more. 1 and 2. Okay, so there is our X. And there are the other 2 stitches for the increase. And now we're going to continue on with our increase pattern for row number 4, which is to place 2 double crochets, 1 into each of the next 2. So there's the second one. And then we place a regular increase with 2 double crochets. Okay, so just like we did before, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, and it brings us right back to the very first chain 3, or the first stitch, and into that last stitch will be a shell stitch. Okay, so each end has a shell stitch. So go ahead and finish that to the end of row 4, and I will meet back with you shortly. Okay, for row number 5, this is where things are going to start to change a little bit, and we'll create the continuous repeat for our project. So we are going to begin by chaining 3, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to turn our work, and for round number 5, sorry, I keep calling them rounds. For row number 5, there will be no increases. Okay, so now we don't want our shawl to flare out anymore on these wings. We just want them to cap out here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go into the next stitch. So we're not going to work into this stitch. We're going to work the next stitch, and we're going to place a double crochet. And basically we're just going to place 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way to the other end. The only thing that will stay the same as before is our X stitch. So once you get to there, we will create the X stitch. Go ahead and do 1 double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet up with you when it's time to do our X stitch. Okay, so we have 19 stitches all the way to our X. So the previous row had 20 stitches all the way around. Now the reason why we have 19 is because one of these stitches belongs to the X. So when we're doing a row that does not increase, which you're going to find now as we continue to build our shawl, every other row will not have increases in it. So this is row number 5. It does not have increases in it. And so once we get to the X, we just place an X as usual. So we skip this stitch, we skip the chain 1, you know the drill, and we do a double crochet, we chain 1, and then come back to that first stitch that we skipped, and finish the double crochet, which gives us that X effect, just like that. Okay, so you can really see that wing is rounding out. And then to finish row number 5, you're just going to continue on 1 stitch into each for the next 8 stitches. And then of course you're going to create your X stitch, and then 1 into each all the way to the end. Okay, so I have finished row number 5, and I now have a total of 50 stitches. Now I did not include the chain 1s that help to create the X, but if you want to count those, there's 2 chains there, 1 on each side, so that would be 52 stitches. So this is the top part that we're forming and continuing to build. So from here on out, every odd numbered row will not have an increase. We'll do exactly what we just did. So we're going to go on to row number 6, and this is how you will treat all of your increase rows from now on. So we are no longer going to be increasing on the edge because we don't want it to keep curling up. We want to level it out, and that's what's going to create that little arch of the wing shape. So for row number 6, we begin by chaining 3, and you can see my colors starting to transition now. We turn our work, and so you're always going to build your increases. So in row number 4, when we did increase, we placed an increase in every 3rd stitch. So see that? There's an increase there. There's 1, 2, and then an increase. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have 3 stitches in between our increases. Now remember, because we're no longer beginning with an increase, this counts as 1. So the chain 3 counts as 1. We move into the next stitch, and we're going to place the second one, and then into the next stitch we place the third one. So for this row we are increasing into every fourth stitch, so there's 3 stitches in between. So now into the next stitch we are going to place an increase. Just like that. And then we proceed to place 1 double crochet into each of the next 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, increase, and we go all the way until, you guessed it, until we reach our X mark. So go ahead and finish that, and I'll meet you there. Okay, so I've made my way up and I'm at the X and worked out perfectly, so I'm just simply going to do an X. So I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to skip this stitch, I'm going to skip the chain, insert, chain 1, and then go in through there. Oops. And there we have it. So you can see it's created a nice arch. We've got our X stitch, and now we're going to do our spine. And then moving on, we do the X stitch, and then we continue on as we did before. Now keep in mind that we're doing a mirror, right? So we ended with these 3 individual stitches, 1, 2, 3. So once we come across, we do our spine, we do our X, we actually begin 1, 2, 3, and then increase. 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, increase, and it should work out so that the last 3 stitches are the individual stitches, because remember, we do not want increases on our edges anymore. Okay, so go ahead and do that for row number 6, and then we're just going to simply repeat row 5 and 6 to create the size of the shawl that you desire. But I'm going to meet up with you at the end of row 6 just to talk about how you're going to do that. Okay, so I have completed row number 6, and you can see that the color's changing nicely there. So next we would go on to row number 7, which is an odd numbered row, which we do not increase on, okay? So you would just simply chain 3 and do 1 into each, and of course you know what to do. Once you get to the X section, you create an X, then you have 8. Your spine should always have 8 stitches in between those X's, okay? If you are just doing your double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, then for you, you will always have 10 stitches in between your chain 1 spaces, which technically we do. So if you actually went into the space of the X and you counted this stitch and this stitch, that would give you your 10. So your spine, the stitch number in your spine will always stay the same. The only ones that increase are the ones on your wings, okay? So row number 7 would have no increases. Row number 8 would then begin by placing 4 stitches and then the increase. See how we did 3, 1, 2, 3, an increase? So each time you do an increase row, you will increase also the number of stitches between each one. So row number 8 would have 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the increase. And then when you go to row number 10, you have 5 stitches and then an increase. And that is how you keep building up the shape of your shawl while creating the length, okay? And so you just keep repeating that. So whatever you do on one side, you do the opposite on the other, right? So it's a mirror. Definitely pause the video, go back if you need to look at certain things. Of course, I always like to put the timestamps down for all the rows. So if you need to go back and reference, you can. So there will be timestamps for rows 1 through 6. And basically, you're essentially repeating the technique of row 5 and 6 from here on out. So this is where I leave you guys. So if I just turn this up this way, just to show you guys. So because we're no longer increased, this is going to level out. So let me show you on my sample here. Okay, so see how it's scooped up, but then it levels out. And that's what gives us that winged effect. All right, so this is where I leave you guys. And I think you're going to have fun working on this. That's why I kept the stitch itself very simple. It's only double crochets and just that little detail of the X stitch for those of you that want to add that in there. So you are going to pause. You're going to leave this video for a while. You're going to go ahead, finish the length in the body, and then we will meet back up to show you the full length of your very own Faroese shawl. Okay guys, so I'm pretty much done my lengths. So you can see where that spine is now really defined. Now, there's just one thing that I want to address here, and I will have discussed it at the intro of this video. Basically, the Faroese is designed so that it will scoop around the neck a lot more. Now, you can see with mine that it is actually quite subtle. So this is not going to drape the way that I need it to. And that was a boo-boo on my part because we were using bulky yarn. So I followed the exact same formula as when we were using the lighter weight yarn for the sample. And so I like to kind of show you guys these things because sometimes this is the stuff that happens. And to be honest, I did see that it was not going to be as pronounced when I got about halfway through. But honestly, I did not want to frog this whole thing. I mean, I have been known for frogging complete projects, but because I was really so invested in getting this done in time for you guys, I just decided I'm not going to frog it. But I do want to explain that we should have done more rows of the increase with the 3 stitches here. Okay, so let me just bring back my sample here. Okay. So in the little sample, you can see, look at how much it pronounces upward. Yeah. So if I had continued going, then when you drape it, see, it's going to sit a lot nicer around the person's neck. So this is something to remember when you are using a bulkier yarn. You want to do more rows of these initial 3 stitch increases before you level off the side. So in both of these, I had done 4 rows of the increases, and then I just went back down to allowing the sides to straighten out. For a bulkier yarn, if I had to do this again, I would probably do 8 rows or maybe even 10. So these are the kinds of things that you're going to have to gauge as you create them. Because right now it's so subtle that technically it just kind of looks a bit like a semicircle shawl, okay? Because we kept this side fairly straight. And then the bottom is just, it just kind of continues on. Now, in many Faroese constructions, the spine does flare out as well. And that's when we start getting a little bit more intricate. But what I wanted to do with this first Faroese design, because I am going to do more of these in the future, just to kind of allow people to dive into the slightly more intricate designs. I wanted to keep it super basic and simple so that you wouldn't feel so intimidated to dive into this shape. So what I'm going to do. Okay, so this is the last stitch I worked, and now I just want to come around the corner here. So I'm going to make something a little bit fancy. I'm going to go back into the same stitch, and I'm going to place another double crochet, just like that. And then I'm going to chain 2, 1 and 2. I'm going to go back into the same stitch again, and I'm going to place another double crochet. Okay, so it just creates like a little V-stitch. Now I'm going to chain 2 again, 1, 2, and still go back into that same stitch and I'm going to place 2 double crochets. So it's just creating this little flared look, just like that. Okay, and it just adds a little interesting detail instead of just a typical corner. So now I'm ready to work up the side of my shawl here until I get to the top line. And so because we're working double crochet stitches, we know generally that into the side of these stitches we can fit 2 stitches. So let's go right away into the top of that stitch there, and we're going to place a double crochet. Okay, and then let's find a spot somewhere in the center of that stitch, and I always try and pick up at least 2 loops, and we double crochet again. Okay, so that's the bottom of the stitch and halfway up the stitch, and now we go to the bottom of the next stitch. So a double crochet there, and then a double crochet somewhere in the middle, right about there. And some of this will be a little bit of eyeballing, but for the most part you'll know what looks good to you or not. Okay, just like that. And now I'm at the bottom of the next stitch. So this is basically what you're going to do all the way up. See how pretty that looks? So come around the bottom. You're going to go up the side here. So this is along the side. Whoops. Oh, sorry. So this is the side. So this is the bottom. I'm all discombobulated. So you're going to go all the way up the side here, all the way up the side. And then this is the actual neck area. So once we get to this last row here, just before the bend dips, I'm going to meet up with you there. And I'm just going to take you through how we're going to accentuate that flare there. Okay, so it might be a little while before I see you, but press pause, finish the side, and then I'll meet you up there shortly. Okay guys, so I'm just coming up to the little arch there. So I've just done my little border portion here, and so this is the part where it's supposed to dip. So what I'm going to do, whoops, I have one more to go here. So I'm going to do one more double crochet. And again, I'm doing it this way, once you see this arch here, because of the little boo-boo I made by not doing enough increase rows. So this is kind of my fix for it. So into the top of this stitch right here, which is where it arches over, we're going to place 2 double crochets. So we have 1 and we have 2 right back into the same spot. And then we're going to do a little chain 1. And then we're going to do another 2 again back into the same spot. So I'm just trying to create that same arched shape going around the bend there. See, just like that. And I didn't do a chain 2 because I didn't want it to come to a point. I just wanted it to be able to spread out a little bit, but not really come to a point. And so as I come around, this is the part where it should be dipping down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a half double crochet into the next space there. Okay, and then I'm going to find the next area where I want to place a stitch and do another half double crochet. And so this is now along the neck area, so I'm just going to do half double crochets instead of double crochets because I want to make sure. See the shaping there? So it goes around and it's going to dip back down. So let me just take this out. I know it's tricky to see here. Okay. So see, that's the edge. That's where that little arch is. And then this is where it's supposed to dip down. And as you can see on the other side, it's going to start coming back up again. So this is just kind of a little fix to help me make that more pronounced. And I could just continue building my shawl around that way and do rows and rows and rows. For the purposes of this video, I'm just doing it this way to show you how we can make a little quick fix. And as I said before, we'll definitely do more Faroese shawls because I feel that understanding the basic concept of this shape takes a little while. Whoops. And I wanted to keep this one pretty simple so that we can get the idea here. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to do half double crochets all the way around. And then once it starts kind of bending up again, once I get to this top, like the row where we increased the last time, so you can see if I pull that apart, you can see there's 3 double crochets in there. At the top of that, I'm going to do the same thing I did over here, but I'll meet back up with you in a second to show you how I do it. Okay, so I've just come around up to the next side where it's going to arch again. So this is where that last increase is. So I just had to add some more yarn. So there's my tail there. So I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to, whoops, I'm going to actually do one more half double crochet into the side here. And now I'm going to go into the top of this stitch and I'm going to work 2 double crochet stitches. So there's 1 and there's 2. Then we've got that chain 1 and we go back into the same stitch and do another 2 double crochet stitches. 1 and 2. So you can see the half doubles come up gradually. And now this is going to be a little bit more pronounced. That is the whole point of the Faroese, is to show that shaping upward. And then we just continue on with our double crochets now down the way here. So I'm just going to move my way down and along into the sides of the stitches. Yeah. So this yarn is a lot more white than the other one, as you can see. So when I take it out this way, hopefully you guys can see that. Actually, let me turn it right down. So that way it's upside down, but so you can see the pronunciation of that arch shape. So in reality, we actually want this to be curved up much, much more. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue and do this border. I'm going to finish along the top, and I may do a few more rows just to kind of thicken up this arch. But if you're happy with yours the way it is, then once you finish this border, you're pretty much done. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish mine, and then I will show you how I made out on my end. And here it is, guys, the final shawl. I ended up doing 3 rows of this border, and then I decided to stop. So as you can see, it just created more of a dipped in collar, which is fine because it actually gives it that angel wings, kind of more like a cloak than a shawl. But I think it'll be cute for Christmas. It's a great little colorway, which I really, really like. And yeah, I would have preferred it to kind of wing out a little bit more, but that will be for a future project coming in the new year. So stay tuned for that. But I love how the spine came out. So you can see the X stitch, and it just creates a nice little delineation of the center. And then you can see where it flares out. So this is the main idea behind a Faroese shape, is it's supposed to have that spine, like I said, and then it creates the wings. So what I wish I would have done is created the increases, as I've said before, so that the wings really spread out a little further up. But these are the learning lessons you go through when you are working on brand new designs. So like I said, I don't usually see this in crochet. It's mostly done in knit patterns, but I am very excited to be changing that and providing more crochet type patterns using the Faroese shape. But for now, I think for the holidays, I think this came out really great. It's got that wool blend, so it's going to be nice and toasty, and it's just festive and cute and perfect for watching some movies on Christmas night or opening up presents. So there you have it. So like I said, I did do 3 rows. And you can see I just continued the increases here in the corners. I just continued to create fan stitches. And then I just dipped down here and did half double crochets just to kind of keep it level with dipping down. So now the border is totally optional. You don't have to put the border, but I just felt that it really anchored the top, especially with the colorway that we have going on here. So there we have it for our Faroese design for this year. There will definitely be more coming in the new year. So if you haven't already, make sure to click that subscribe button and stay up to date. I upload a brand new crochet tutorial every Wednesday morning. So that is our Christmas Angel cloak. It is the last of our Shawl We Crochet projects in our series this year. If you have missed any of them, you're curious to check out more, I will leave a link to the playlist in the description box down below. We've explored all kinds of shawl shapes, and there's still a few we haven't actually touched on. So if you like shawls and shawl projects, that playlist is for you. Now, if you have any questions, which I feel like you might have with this particular project, make sure to leave them for me in the comment box down below. And many of you like to email me directly, so feel free to do that as well. You can email me at info@crochetcrafty.com, and I'm always very happy to answer any questions that you may have. And don't forget, come visit me on the website, crochetcrafty.com. Lots of extra goodies there for you, free written patterns. And in fact, you should sign up for my monthly newsletter while you're on the website, because I gift you a free written pattern every single month. And if you're looking for a few more patterns, also visit my Etsy shop at Crochet Crafty Canada. And come say hi to me. I'm on the socials at Facebook and Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. All of that good stuff, all of that info is on there. Now, guys, as always, if you have any requests or suggestions for other crochet tutorials that you would like me to create or work on, please do leave them for me in the comment box down below. I am always looking to make sure that I keep creating tutorials and projects that are fun and interesting and a little challenging for you all to do. So there we have it. There will be a year in review of all of our projects coming up soon. So that video will be coming up this month, in the month of December. Actually, there's going to be a few extra bonus videos coming up, so stay tuned for that. And don't forget, we are trying to hit 10,000 subscribers before Christmas. We're sitting at about 9,300. I think we're just under 9,400. So we've got about 600 more subscribers to go. So let's do it. So if we hit 10,000 before Christmas, I'm going to be doing a subscriber giveaway. So in order to find out how to enter, you need to go back and watch my Christmas crochet tour for 2022. And I'll leave a link for that in the description box down below on how you can enter the giveaway. And I will be letting you know very shortly what the giveaway is going to be. So stay tuned for that. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and joining me on my crochet journey every week. I hope you have an amazing day. As always, happy crocheting and take very good care of yourselves. Happy holidays, and I will see you guys in next week's session. Bye-bye.